Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales. This is a podcast where we explore how the best B2B sales leaders make the complex simple, drive relationships and revenue, and generally elevate the sales profession. In this podcast, we're bringing together sales experts, thought leaders, top account executives, buyers, industry insiders, all to share their experiences and best practices for navigating the complex sales cycle. So whether you're a seasoned sales professional, a sales leader, or just starting out, you're going to find practical insights and actionable advice that you can apply to your own sales journey. Plus, we have a bit of fun. A founding member in the Sales Enablement Society and a successful founder and CEO, Walter Pollard embraces the power of innovation and models the spirit of move forward execution. He has a true passion for empowering the rapid modernization and transformation of marketing and sales practices in today's need-it-yesterday world. He knows that B2B buyers continue to transform, and companies must adapt to the way they sell through self-leadership, enhanced technologies, and ongoing improvement at all levels. He's made a life's work of it, and our time today goes through some of the most critical elements we must embrace as we move forward in B2B sales. So let's get it started with Walter P. The man, the myth, the legend, Walter Pollard. I am super excited to get going with you today. How are you doing, my friend?
What an opening. Myth legend. People have called me a lot of things, but not that before.
Well, myth and legend, I guess, I think you've been called a man. Myth and legend might be a little bit too much.
I only wish when I had a conversation with my clients, every single time they said the exact same thing.
You should just put that in your title, put it in your Calendly, saying, are you ready to, which one do you want to meet with, the man, the myth, or the legend?
My LinkedIn messaging may blow up, but anyways, we'll leave it at that.
No, well, truth be told, I have been really excited about this for quite a while. We had a conversation a while back, and we just on sales enablement and topics like that, we just meshed and things around mindset, innovation, and co-creating value. And I'm super excited to get into that because I think you have a ton of feedback on it that's very valuable. The one thing that you have to do that every person that comes on the show that has to do is define sales. So Walter Pollard, what is sales?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say sales is very much, I look at it from the perspective of being outcome focused. So when I say that, really look at it from the perspective, Paul, the co-creation of value with the customer by helping the customer see the true reality of their situation and creating new possibilities to solve their most challenging problems and really help them overcome them. You know, a lot of times we focus on, I see it as your product or service is really the byproduct of how much value you provide. So when I say that and think of the definition of sales, not focusing on your product and service, but where you can provide true value from that co-creation process. And in turn, if you do that correctly, you have a much better chance of aligning your product or capabilities and service based upon that to provide value to the client.
I love picking out words from these things. So I'm gonna. You said a couple of things that were awesome there that I need you to dive into. So
Sure.
See the true reality of their situation. Like, don't we see our true reality all the time? Or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I see it from a perspective that a lot of times ourselves and our customers have their own biases and perspectives of what's occurring in the world. That could be completely true. It may be partially true. So as example, customers may, in many cases, we talk to our customers and what they think of the real potential problem and challenges may not be that at all. Maybe something else, or they don't know what the problem even is. Digital, right? Everything's changing so rapidly. So I think helping them see the true reality of their situation and seeing is really important without telling them what the problem is. Mm-hmm. So if you can help guide them through that process to see the true reality of their situation, it's that aha moment for the customer that provides them the clarity they need and the direction they need to move in to move forward. And you cannot provide more value than that. And especially from the perspective when you're not telling them. You're actually, it's an art form helping them see the reality of the situation.
That's fantastic. And then tying that together with, you said this word's creating new possibilities. What does that mean in the context of sales?
Yeah, so I see it from the perspective is sales today. Of course, we all want to sell what we have, products and services. But the reality of situations, a lot of times we have to alleviate our own biases, come in from a perspective, from that co-creation value perspective, to actually see what's happening in the customer's world. Because from our bias perspective, we may perceive one thing, but in reality, it's something else. And in turn, when you begin to see that, helping your customers envision new possibilities, how they can solve their problems, and do that in a manner without potentially talking about initially, at least in initial conversations about your product and service. They can surely lie in a much later conversation, but it comes into the envisioning piece and ideation piece and design thinking piece to help the customers see what those new possibilities are. It may be from a perspective that you're a SaaS company selling just using an example, account management platform. But part of the process, the account team may not be gaining traction with the account team. Certain account teams may not be gaining traction in the organization. And maybe what you're actually helping them see is they need a new role to help drive that forward. And what that new role is, you could potentially line back to your application. And there's a process to go through, but that's the light bulb moment where you're really co-creating that value with the client. That's like, I had no idea. And this is so helpful. And this is so impactful. It changes the game.
So you're talking about this. One of the things that strikes me here is that there's, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but it's just striking me that both of those things, helping them see the true reality of the situation and creating new possibilities, are things that take courage and vision.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a new way of thinking, right? It's a new form of mindset. I mean, without a doubt, it takes courage, vision. It takes a certain level of curiosity. You got to have a high level of curiosity. It takes a higher level of empathy and understanding. It's being truly customer centered, but it's the courage component is a big piece to it. Yeah, because it's a whole different perspective how you're working in that environment.
And we got onto this thing, and you're doing a lot of work and research recently that I'm just fascinated about, like diving into mindset. That's where I want to, well, we talked about going there. And so tell me a little bit about what you're finding in terms of sales and mindset and our ability to do those things, like seeing the true reality, creating new possibilities, and actually having the courage to do it. So
sure. So I think from a perspective, I work with leaders in organization and sales professionals regarding to from a mindset component. But if we think about mindset today, I like to use a term. We were talking about this. If we could just add this to the mix, VUCA.
Okay.
And VUCA is
add it to the mix. Tell us what the VUCA is.
So I know I'm dealing with this, and I think a lot of other folks are dealing with this on a daily basis, with especially with digital transformation, how fast business is moving today, the economic downturn. There's so many different factors. But VUCA stands for, the acronym for VUCA, it's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And it was really, the acronym was found first from the U.S. Army War College. I believe it was in 1987. But it really came about, Paul, because it was applied to the conditions following the end of the war and the conflict that was beginning in Afghanistan. And they were, the War College, they were looking at from a perspective, how do we dealing with all these external threats? We're dealing with volatility. We're dealing with uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in the space. And how do we actually deal with that? So we're all dealing with these different components. And what I'm getting at, from a mindset perspective, it's very difficult to move forward and have the clarity to move forward when you're dealing with volatility, because there's so much volatility in the market, right? And that causes unpredictability, uncertainty. So many things are unclear. How do you move forward? There's complexity, and there's so many factors. There's chaos and confusion around complexity, and ambiguity. There's a lot of times lack of awareness, of situational analysis based upon different situations. As example, there's many different stakeholders, right? And we're dealing with more and more different stakeholders in an organization. So when I deal with mindset, we're looking at it from the perspective of based upon dealing with areas that we may be risk averse. We may be dealing with areas where working with clients with decision making, having that clarity and that vision to move forwards. We may be dealing in areas where different areas that they can think about envisioning, new ways of envisioning. We may be dealing with areas where there's actual burnout. We may be dealing in areas where organizations as a whole or leaders want to build a higher level of resiliency and even get to that place of anti-fragility, that level of grit. It's hard for them right now to move forward because they don't have the clarity they need, as example, to make those decisions. And a lot of times our mind gets in the way, all of us. But having that element where we can help them see, providing the clarity of self-awareness and situational analysis, to understand the situation, you first have to have that. That's kind of like your compass to understand where you are today to where you can move forward to tomorrow. Our brains are all about being the narrator, and they tell us a story, and we hear that story every day, whether it's true or not. And whether it's true or not, we believe it.
Based on what you said, and I'm wondering if you agree with this. So I think you could probably chart VUCA, right, in a line that goes up and to the right, right? That just this VUCA quotient is probably a logarithmic in terms of the world and what we've been going through the past 5, 10, 15 years. The speed of business, the complexity of business, the speed of options is continually growing, right, massively. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've heard in market continually is that sales skills drop. Sales skills are actually have been dropping over the course of that 20 years. But what just hit me is one of the potential reasons. It's likely not the fact that complexity is such a big deal in that. Maybe it's not that the sales skills have dropped. It's maybe they've just gone sideways. They have not kept pace, and we have not invested, because these things that you're talking about with mindset are leadership traits. They're things that you need to force yourself to train your mind, to be your mind. I don't think we've kept up with that. I don't think we've kept up with giving our teams the ability necessarily to deal with this complexity in a way that keeps them sane and whole, right? And we've done it more in a way that is said, oh, we need to break it down into an assembly line. Because it's become so much more complex, you only need to take 2% of the equation so you can understand it. You all you need to do is make this call, right? And you just make that call and you make that 1 million times. And then we go to the next putt. Instead of arming our complete sales teams with the ability to be leaders and the ability to have that mindset shift. What do you think about that? Just popped in based on a talk I did yesterday, but.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, so this goes into the whole component of autonomy. This is the big problem we have today. We're not giving our sales professionals enough autonomy to do what they need to do, because that leads into mindset. Because a lot of mindset comes from a perspective of providing people autonomy and having a core purpose, because mindset all comes from a place of purpose, passion, motivation to drive clear goals and outcomes. And people can't do that if they don't have autonomy. Mm-hmm. And I think a big problem we have today in sales that we're just overly rotated, putting people, sales professionals more in a box. Just do these activities, right? We all know exponentially it goes up every year. 10 years ago, I had to focus 2 hours a day on activities. Now I'm focusing 5 hours on activities. And it's just becoming such a challenge for sales professionals today. So I think it's definitely from a leadership perspective and a sales perspective, because this goes into the piece of innovation. If You're not providing your sales folks the autonomy to do what they need to do. If folks in an organization, we all deal with this fear of failure, right? If we are risk averse, how do we move forwards? And the skills we need today, and again, this isn't about fixing the salespeople, but it's just as we all need to evolve in the world we live in today, I don't see as much as the skills going down, but potential new skills to move up. So as example, I think in your mindset is one of the biggest differentiators you have. We've been very good at focusing. There's 3 areas you can really focus. You can focus in the world today, I see, as a human. You can focus on your body, you can focus on your skills, and you can focus on your mind. In business, we've always focused on our skills, but we haven't focused enough on our mind. Because when you free your mind up, when you can become, when you have that ability to that optimal, I call it that optimal state of consciousness where you feel your best and you can perform your best and you don't have that fear and you can move forward. Because the only fear in reality I see is it's not a negative, it's actually positive, because fear is a feedback loop. It provides us the knowledge and expertise we need to keep moving forwards. So if we can free the mind up based upon the situation and provide them the tools and the assets they need to train the mind, you can become so powerful and achieve so much more. Look at athletes. That's where sports is going. Some of the NFL teams, we can go on and on. They put more money and effort besides physical. They focus heavily on the mind. And they have to do that because the world of sports today, you look at the NFL, players are much quicker than they've ever been. They're much bigger. They hit much harder. You have to have these new skill sets to perform better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's, and I'm going to be controversial here because I think it's just what I believe, but I think there's a large part of a generation that society has misled. They have said that you have the right to not be offended. You have the right to not be, and this, it doesn't come to a specific area, but we don't have that right. What we do have the right is the freedom to be able to build our mind that offense, doesn't matter. And especially in sales, you are going to get offended all the freaking time. Yeah. In leadership, you're going to get offended all the freaking time. Offended, disagreed with, yelled at. I mean, and our goal is to not be people's best friends. Like there's nothing that you told me about your definition of sales that said I need to be their best friends to be able to, or any of that type of stuff. I think and this is a big part of mindset for me is the shift back to, and some of the work that I absolutely love, this shift back to self-leadership and the ability to control it. And I would add one thing to your body, skills, mind. I would add spirit, right? That's just from my worldview, body skill, to be able to control our body, skills, mind, and spirit, to be able to do that. And investing in our teams, that's where I'm so hit in alignment with you. Investing in our teams to be able to, that autonomy and with that clear purpose, to be able to execute and be excited about executing instead of fear of it. It's like it's cool. Yeah,
because again, how are you going to move forward to be able to think differently and innovate if you don't have the autonomy to do that? And then innovation, I see mind and innovation and creativity and sales, they're all tied together. Mm-hmm. They're all tied because if you're not giving people, sales folks, the autonomy to do what they need to do and be good at it, how are they going to be motivated?
Yep.
I mean, the simplest form, and then we're talking about simple things here, but it's just reality, and they're not going to have purpose. And today we know people need that more than ever before in sales because you're right, they're dealing with more conflict than ever before.
Yep. More
Who wants to talk to sales, right? The number goes up every year, right? Based upon the customer that does a percentage that don't want to. If I could never talk to a sales professional again, you would make my day. You know what I mean? So we really
I'm going to add to VUCA. I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. This is terrible podcast.
No, please do, please.
But I'm adding to VUCA. I'm adding a C there. It's got to be VUCCA. It's got to, because conflict and complexity, conflict is going up in a massive way, like massive way.
It is. And conflict is also the key to the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a level of conflict because you can't come in with the answer, and you have to be willing to listen to others. But and I know where you're coming from the conflict piece for sales. I agree with you. I'm just connecting some dots here, but there is more and more conflict than ever before. But how can we, and I'm really happy you brought this up, and I think you're right. So how can we re-envision what conflict actually is?
Yes.
See, we need to think about it from that. And that goes to the mindset piece. Is how you co-create with the client. It's such an important element. I mean, I used to, I don't mean to get off track, but just because I used to be in the movie industry and work on feature films. Big piece we focused on daily. There was conflict all the time. But it got us to a good place, and we had to move very quickly in a very agile environment. Mm-hmm. And conflict was our friend. It was not our enemy. People need to see conflict as a friend and how to reimagine what conflict is and actually the true value it can provide you.
Yeah, we're just going to keep going down this rabbit hole because it's a lot of fun. But when we see conflict has absolutely gone up, what we've also seen go down, right, is the ability to have relationships. And I always say that in a Peloton world, we're riding by ourselves. Right, mm-hmm. We're absolutely riding by ourselves in this world, regardless of if we think we're in a group. Right, I love being with you right now. This is fantastic. But guess what? I'm not with you right now. Like this is virtual. So, but the ability to this has come on so fast, right? That our ability to form lasting relationships is, at least for a lot of the population, is going down. Which is fascinating. So we're having this increase in conflict with a decrease in relationships. And I think sales and this mindset, the ability to have this should be leading us into the next phase. I believe that strongly about it, because that's our ability to connect, lead, drive companies, drive communities.
Yeah.
And not lose. We can't lose that art of actually being able to a relationship at a trusted and respected level with a stranger that we may or may never, meet in person. Like we got to be able to do that and spread that. There's a soapbox there, but I need your response to it.
No, well, when you say that's so interesting, and I'm leaning back in. First, number one, I agree with you. I also think it leans into truly being customer centered, because we all, everybody's talking today. Oh, we got to be customer centric, right? Yeah. But how many companies really are? Mm-hmm. Right. And really thinking, I mean,
it's a catchphrase.
Right. It's a catchphrase. But when you talk about relationships, you talk about conflict, that's a piece of really truly being customer centered. Mm-hmm. And people will be like, conflict and be customer centered? Because if you're customer centered and really understand the true reality of your customer's situation and really build that relationship and connection to go through that process, as example, just to co-create with them, there's a level of conflict in that. Conflict, if you want to help them see what's possible, there may be a level of conflict when you're ideating to go through that process because they see things very differently.
Yep. And
that builds credibility and trust. And that forms the relationship. And it also builds that interactive and engagement piece. What we're all striving for today. Look, you and I feel like I've known you for years, Paul. We just met about a month ago, right? And I'm having this great comment. I feel like as well, if I could, I'd high five you. I'm virtually high fiving you now. But this is an engaging conversation, right? How can we drive more engagement? You brought up a really important piece when you're asking me community. I think we need to create more community. And I think we need to help sales from a co-creation of value piece, because I think community is an important piece to connect with our customer and provide environments in communities to help our sales force where they can co-create value with the clients.
Well, let's dive there, because let's get your idea of co-creation of value. That is also something that I think needs definition, because everybody looks at it a little bit different. And then let's dive heavy on that for the next, 5, 6, 10 minutes we got left in the pod. And then, because I think that's really important in this idea of community. You got to lead. I've always had this idea that you got to be able to be independent. This is not just a me idea. This is a Stephen Covey 7 Habits. You got to be able to be independent to be interdependent, right? So we've talked a lot about that mindset to be independent and be able to take risks, be able to, lead, be able to have that vision for a customer. Now we're talking about interdependent. So co-creation of value, interdependency. Ready, Walter, go.
Yeah, so co-creation of value and that interdependency piece. So I think a lot about, when I think about co-creation of value, I'm thinking about it very much from that perspective of, number one, if you're going to co-create value, you have to change in your mindset. I'm coming back to this again because you can't come in with the answer. And we're all trained sales, right? Hey, this is X, Y, and Z. This is our product. We're coming in with the answer. But the reality of the situation, you have to alleviate those biases of actually having the answer and having a new way to go through that process, whatever you want to call it, discovery or whatever, but be able to do the research and the true analysis to come in to have a much different conversation with the customer to start that process. And it can be many different things. We don't have time to get into all those today, but that's a total shift. And creating that interdependency, because when you have the ability to come in from that perspective and really reframe how you're thinking about this and actually this is a key component, taking action to do it, you're building that level of interdependency with the customer, so to speak.
So I'm going to give you an example, and hopefully this doesn't throw you off, but I always go back to a car sales. Like you're at a Honda dealer. You're a Honda dealer. You have, 4 different cars to sell, right? How do I then co-create value around a Honda with a family that's coming in? Like how does that become real in those type of situations?
Yeah. Well, number one, I love that you're doing this. This is great. You're not throwing me off at all. This is like we're ideating right here, right? Because I've never thought about that. It's the simplest form. So this is great. I think the co-creation value piece comes in from a perspective of really having a true, and co-creation, I very much align, I'll say, to design thinking. From the perspective of truly understanding their situation and what's the reason, why are they buying the car? Tell me more about your family. Tell me more about where are you today? Where are you going? Are you going to have more kids? I start to ask all these questions. And so you have to be highly curious from that perspective. So I would come in from a perspective of learning more about the family, what they live, what's their lifestyle, what they do, how much do they drive? Right? Because all these come into play, and really understanding, provide them the clarity, because they may not even think it about from a perspective when they come to buy a car, how many miles they drive a year, or they may be thinking that. But where you're coming in from asking all these questions and being highly curious to ideate with the client to have a true understanding. So this is really important, Paul. If I was that used car salesman, visualization is vital. Visualize. So I would just have a canvas, piece of paper right there. Oh, you tell me this, you tell me this. Begin writing them all so they could see it. It could reaffirm their thinking and begin to connecting the dots. And this is what we need today, more so than ever before in sales. So I'm really aligning to their problems and needs and maybe helping them see some things they're not seeing. Again, it could be mileage. It could be, most people focus on safety. It could be a number of different factors. And then based upon that, then align to the outcome based upon what car is going to provide the most value to them. And more importantly, what car may not. The reality of the situation is, hey, now that I look at this full criteria that I have today, I actually can help you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that was great. I just threw that out of left field. And I think the one thing that I would add to that, right, is at the beginning, and tell me if this is your experience, but if I'm going to look to co-create value, I do need that relationship, and they need to be open to that. If they're not, like if this guy comes in and this is what I think a lot of salespeople miss, right? If they come in and they I want a black Honda minivan, I already know I drive 150 miles. I know exactly what I want. And you come up and try and co-create the value with them, it's going to miss, right? So they need to want that help. And they want to be able to engage in that relationship. And I think sometimes that's where salespeople sometimes come off as pushy when they're like, they don't understand. Like, I don't even know where I'm going. They don't necessarily have that permission at the front to do that. They don't have that trust. They don't work to earn it. They just dive deep into the relationship piece and the co-creation before they even have the opportunity they've never even earned the trust.
Yeah, right. So you bring up a very important point. Yeah, the permission piece. Because I think about it like, we'll just use this scenario. We're just playing this game now, okay? You want a black Honda minivan. You know, you said what? You drive 100, whatever the mileage is. But anyways,
I drive 25,000 miles a year.
Miles a year.
A lot of kids.
Okay.
A lot of kids.
So a lot of times you can start from that process. That's where they're comfortable. That's their personality. Okay, fine. I can begin to show you this. But the reality is, once you get in then you begin to, you brought up a really important word. I was going to talk about permission. Mm-hmm. Once you build, here, I'll be happy to show you this. This is what we have right here, here, and here. And as you're beginning to build trust to show them, okay, I see. Do you mind if I ask you a question? Do you mind if I ask you a question? And that's when you can begin to connect dots. Have you thought about X? Have you thought, well, no. You know, you begin to get them thinking. And then you can begin to connect the dots to where things they may not be focusing on or willing to talk about initially, they may open up and begin focusing as you begin to ask powerful questions. And this goes back to really, deep level listening skills, right? Listening is so vital and what it actually really means. But when you begin to do that and build that trust, and it can come in from different angles, then you have the opportunity to begin to open that door from that co-creation piece. And thinking it may just start with one thing, but it leads into something else. Again, it's not that you're trying to upsell them. Right. So you're trying to provide them value to think about the reality of the situation and come to a decision collectively. That car may be the best for them. But the reality of the situation, it may not be that minivan at all. You may want the new Ford, whatever, Expedition, the big Expedition because of X, Y, and Z. And helping to come to that reality.
Yeah, that brings up a big point. Like in this, if we're truly co-creating value, which I respect the heck out of this conversation, is you need to be open to the idea at the start that this is a discovery and that you believe in general that, yeah, you got a good product, you got a good team, you can deliver on this stuff. We are generally the option to solve a range of problems, but the premium option might not be the one that fits, right?
Right.
The one that makes the most money for the company or for you personally or for anybody might not be the one that fits all the time. Because if you're in that co-creation mode, you're trying to get to the best possible outcome.
That's it. Trying to get to
for both of you, right? It's not just
Precisely.
for them; it's for both of you.
Yeah, and it also though the co-creation it gives you a hell of a lot more power, and builds authority. Not only in that initial and the opportunity for that sale, but then the ability to upsell and cross sell because you build a really true relationship with the customer, right? It's not the one-off sale, right? Yep. It's getting to them to the place they really, truly need to be. And they probably haven't seen everything beforehand. And again, this goes into vision, help them see the reality of the situation. But when you have the opportunity to do that, it is so powerful. It kind of, it goes to that. I told you it was in the movie Making Business, so I love Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. I just do. Yeah. But it really comes to that place, I know we've all heard this, not being the hero, making the customer, in reality, you're just the guide. But the guide is more important than the hero because it gets to the hero to cross the threshold to the true reality, to come back to the known world, to be successful.
You got to talk with, I think you already do, but you keep saying guide, and you got to, Mike Corey is a guy that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think
I know Mike well. He's great.
Good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think you got. Well, hey, let's focus back on Walter. How do people connect with you if they are vibing with what you're laying down?
Yeah. So the best way is really on LinkedIn, Walter Pollard. You can reach out with me on LinkedIn. I also have a company called Brand Fuzion. It's a brand Fusion, and it does confuse people. It's Fuzion, not Sion. So brandfuzion.com. And best way really to reach me is probably LinkedIn.
That's fantastic. And any final wisdom you want to lay out for the listeners today?
I'd say just summarizing our conversation, think about what customer-centered really means, how you can think about from this new perspective of co-creating the value with the customer. Think about perspective, how you can differentiate in the market as you do that. It provides you so many opportunities to innovate with the customer. And also think about very much from a perspective of mindset, because when you have the ability to evolve, when we are all constantly trying to evolve our mind, and if you train your mind, you have so many more opportunities to provide value to the customer, to innovate, and this ability to co-create. Because it's a whole different perspective. And you got to be self-aware, right? Number one, to be able to do that.
Yep. That's a pretty little bow on top of the episode. And I truly appreciate it, Walter. I'd love to have you back. We're continuing to do this. So extending the invite now, maybe 6 months or so.
I'd love to come back.
Okay, rock and roll.
This is awesome.
We're going to hear more of Walter in the future. Absolutely love that. Remember, this podcast is sponsored by membrane.com and all of our partners out there. Walter is one of the amazing partners in membrane.com, but you'll hear more about that in the outro. I have the privilege of being CRO for Membrane, but also get to do this podcast, which is freaking amazing. I get to learn from guys like Walter and all others all over the globe. So what a blessing. With that, everybody keep shining bright. Have an amazing day, and listen again soon. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art and Science of Complex Sales. This podcast is sponsored by Membrane and our partners from around the globe. Here at Membrane, we believe that B2B sales is at a crossroads. Due to decades of quantity-based prospecting, information overload, and really a shift towards efficiency over service and pitching over leadership in sales, customers are saying enough is enough. They're tuning out average performers and choosing to take most of the buying journey on their own. This results in up and down sales results, forecasts that are all over the place, and salespeople that are half committed due to the fact that they're having poor results and they have an inability to truly connect with customers. We believe the road successful companies are taking to combat this is threefold. Number one, training to create leaders and executives across all areas of the team with strong habits and sales methodologies that bring value. Number two, technology. Technology that focuses and helps a salesperson succeed and reinforces great habits, rather than wasting their time on filling out fields for reporting or wasting their time on spamming customers that have no interest in ever buying. Third, talent. And I'm talking about talent that's empowered and emboldened to make a difference for their customers and their companies. So where are you on that journey? Membrane and our network of partners across the globe are here to help and to elevate the sales profession. We streamline critical technology by combining CRM, training and enablement, and more into one seamless platform. We drive best-in-class methodologies through our partners. They provide the top thought leadership methodologies and resources from across the globe. And our collective efforts are dedicated to recruiting, training, coaching, and empowering, and measuring the habits of the top teams in the world to ensure success. Join us at membrane.com to learn more. And thank you so much for listening.